Hello, this is Vladimir Kramnik, and as promised, I'm recording now my next video, which will examine the latest report of Chess.com about fair play, other too many upsets entitled Tuesday. Well, I've checked it very carefully, and my opinion, my clear conclusion that it's extremely weak. Of course, it's still pretty much better than the previous one on Nakamura streak or streaks. They didn't fully understand themselves because, yeah, there was some, well, that was just a joke. But this one is a bit better, but still it's extremely weak. It's full of mistakes, logical fallacies, and I will just explain you now everything. And all in all, well, sorry to be so frank and straight, but it is so incompetent that I frankly find it hard to believe that it was, that it was really what they meant, and that I more tend to think that. Well, there is something which Chesscom wants to hide from us. That's my opinion, because it's just too many mistakes, too many obvious logical mistakes to believe that it's just an incompetence. At least I hope so, because that would be maybe even worse if this is really the level of anti-cheating on chess.com. I mean, according to this report, that is extremely alarming. So let's go. First of all, well, the name of it, how they called it is "Other Too Many Upsets Entitled Tuesday." Actually, this is more like a general feeling from the beginning you get when you start to read it, that it's very unprofessionally done, simply written not correctly. Because, any research, anything which is kind of scientific, mathematic, you have to use a bit different language. What is most important is to have very, very clear definitions of what, how you do, what are you searching for, what is the goal, and every concept has to be very clearly defined. So already here, it took me a long time actually to understand what is this all about, because what means too many upsets? What is upset? This is the first of planned reports. Hopefully the next ones will be at least a bit better, my comment. In this report we try to answer the question, are there too many upsets entitled Tuesdays? What do you mean by upsets? Like overperformance of players, or victories against stronger players, or I don't know, stomach upsets? What? You cannot just use. It's not serious to use a certain concept and they're continuing here. Upset. Just tell first what exactly you mean by this. This is just a very amateurish definition. Finally, I understood that what they meant. Somewhere deep in the text, they finally explain that what they mean. They were studying when a player, let's say his opponent is higher rated than him, and he scores points. That's how it should be written from the very beginning. That we are checking the overperformance of players against a stronger opposition. Yeah, something like that. Okay, you can define it in different words, but you cannot just call it by like this. So, okay, this is just on a general note. It already starts, giving you a strange impression of like something not really professional. But okay, so they're explaining this whole idea of the research. I will read for you. You can, of course, find it on the chess.com site, so you can read it full, the document. I will just comment on the most important parts of it. And finally, what I will explain to you, that first of all numerous mistakes which are there. And for the dessert, actually I'll explain you why it all didn't even make any sense. In fact, that you cannot conclude anything out of this research. So okay, but that's that would be the last part of it. I mean, actually, it can be useful. This type of research could be useful if it was correctly done, but actually in totally different ways than they explain, actually. And I will tell you how it can be useful, and even show you an example later on, which I prepared specially for you. So they are researching, they are trying to compare. I will tell you briefly, not to read the whole text. So they are trying to compare, to understand, they want to understand if there is cheating, widespread cheating. Here they say, the report is trying to answer the question, are there too many upsets in Title Tuesday, whatever they mean by it, possibly suggesting widespread cheating? And of course the answer you already know, you don't need even to read the report. No, of course there is no widespread cheating, it's very nominal, if any. So to answer this, we use publicly available data from Chess.com and Title Tuesday. So they're comparing Title Tuesday games with over-the-board blitz events. Okay, so what they did, they finally explain in the summary that our research indicates that upset rates, by the way, for the moment they still didn't explain what does it mean, in Title Tuesday games and OTB Blitz games are similar, typically within 5% of each other. Actually, the funny thing that they shouldn't be similar mathematically, and I will explain you later why. What stands in our research? So they're explaining. So the idea, they took, they took a certain set of games. Let me move to my prepared document. So I prepared all the only major mistakes which are in this report. So first, there is no clear indication what exact set of games considered, both over the board and in Title Tuesdays. What do I mean? That they took a set of games, as they say. They took I think it goes somewhere there. So I mean, first, what is, as I mentioned already, what is important is, you can be great mathematician, whatever, you can make a good let's say calculation. It's not too difficult having computers, but if you set the wrong parameters or you take a wrong sample, it will be wrong anyways at the end of the day. So very important when you are trying to make any research is to be very, very careful and precise with the parameters, because that is the base. Without it, you will never get anything. So okay, they explain, and finally somewhere here also it's very messy, because first what should be done is parameters. Definitions, parameters, like in any research, in a report like this, professional report I'm talking about. There must be first is actually one of the most important also points, that everyone should be, at least theoretically, able to replicate the same research by himself and check if it's true or not. So you need to set very clear parameters. Here already by parameters they set, okay, they don't say very important things, so you cannot actually check it. You simply cannot, because they mean what they are saying, that they took, I'm just trying to find it here where they are talking about it. They are talking about the games which they took. One second, I'm sorry, it's somewhere, I don't know why it's so messy. It should be at the very beginning, simply in a very clearly, separately written, that what kind of games did they take. I mean, I think it's an appendix even. Conclusion, okay. So here, note 1, we collected OTB Blitz and OTB classical games. I mean, why classical? That's actually another test. I'm not going to talk much about it, because then finally they also made a test trying to understand, according to them, if assessing, prognosing results of blitz games what is the most accurate way is using blitz rating or classical chess rating. I mean, okay, just common sense tells that of course blitz rating, yeah, because it's much more actual, it's based on the games. And finally they come after this checking. I don't know why they did this checking. I mean, what was the point? And anyway, it's pretty clear. And of course, finally the result was, yeah, that the blitz rating is more accurate and you have to use it. Well, you didn't need to make this research. So, okay, anyway, this, I don't know why they included, what was the point of it, but in any case, yeah, so those classical games they took, I hope at least just for that research, which didn't make sense and which finally told, the conclusion was, well, completely predictable, yeah, that it's, so OTB and Blitz and OTB classical game from the week in chess between February 2015 and January 2024. Yeah. We only include games where both players had reliable ratings, which we defined as each player's FIDE Blitz classical rating was based on at least 50 games. Okay, maybe I would only also say that yeah, what could be very important is actually maybe to think should they take games where when a player was not playing for, let's say, 1 year already. I mean, because his rating might be not very accurate, but okay, that's another story, they don't mention it. But the most important, if you are comparing, so what they want to compare? They want to compare classic Title Tuesday games and OTB Blitz 3+2, and then to see if statistics, you know, when you are playing, all the players who are playing against stronger opponents, if finally how the statistic will correlate. Then the thing is that they actually make totally wrong conclusion out of it, but that we will come back to it later. But if you're already comparing those two things, yeah, then for sure it's very logical that all OTB games, Blitz games which you take, they must be played by title players, yeah, because in Title Tuesdays are only title players. So, you know, in any case, when you are doing a very direct comparison, you're trying to compare two groups, you have to to make them as close as possible by parameters. Sometimes it's not possible in certain researches, I mean, whatever research you make in any field. But here it is possible. So if you want it the most accurate, you know, really to make it seriously and to understand really what is the differences, then it's, well, quite obvious that those, they never mention it, and I have no idea what kind of OTB Blitz games they took, and were all of them are from played by title players. I mean, it must be like this. If you are serious about research, it must be. I don't know. I asked them, they never answered as usual. So, okay, this we don't know. Okay, so that is first kind of mistake which they make, in the sense that they have to inform us. So yeah, and then they say each player played at least one OTB Blitz classical game in the previous year. Okay, here they say that it must be at least one game. Okay, still maybe if somebody played only 5, not so much, but fine, that is not the most important. There are so many major mistakes that this is okay. So finally what happened? And finally we see how many games were taken. And actually we understand that here, you see here, 167 Title Tuesday games and only 36,500 OTB Blitz games. And then, so that is my second point. So first, no clear definition, no clear understanding what games were taken. I guess there were World Championships. I think from 2015 there must be around 15,000 games of men, maybe another 5,000 of women, 20,000. Where are the other 16,000 OTB Blitz games? We have no idea. We don't know what games, what tournaments, what level of players. We simply don't know. Okay, I believe it should have been mentioned exactly what kind of games. I mean, what kind of tournaments were taken in a special file, maybe that you can replicate, because otherwise you simply cannot actually repeat this examination at home. You just cannot, yeah, because they can always tell, okay, no, we took this games or that games. Okay, you don't know. This is already not serious because it should have been written. Also, we don't know exactly what title Tuesday. Was it all games? I guess it was all the games from 2015. I mean, also we don't really know. But first and the main, I mean, then the second point, yeah, the second is here. So what is the system? They are saying that actually they are using FIDE Blitz ratings to examine for this examination. Well, I will just read you this. This is also, I mean, it's kind of funny a little bit. So so they are saying introduction here is establishing a baseline of fair play. What would we choose for the baseline of fair play? And they say OTB in-person blitz games and FIDE blitz ratings. In this report, unless otherwise noted, we will always use players' FIDE blitz ratings, not their Chesscom blitz ratings. Okay, that is very questionable to start with, but then the explanation why is even more kind of questionable. So what I say here, using FIDE ratings only, comparing over the board and title Tuesdays actually is a logical fallacy. In fact, because they're explaining here, because they're explaining that there are differences between over the board and online, I mean play in Blitz, which is true, they're very minor in fact, and so they explain that there are differences, but still they examine these online title Tuesday games using only FIDE ratings over the board. So, I mean, does it make any logics to you? Okay, if there are differences, then obviously this examination will not be very precise, clearly, yeah? If you claim there are differences. I believe, frankly, and I know most of top players, they believe that the differences are very minor, and actually this particular test which they are doing is proving it 100%. So now let's stop. I mean, if somebody continues to explain that OTB and Blitz and online Blitz are two totally different games, I will just send them to read this report and they will see the numbers. It's not. Of course, there are minor differences, but it's not, and common sense tells that it's not. Statistics tells that it's not. So please stop giving this argument. I understand all these people, defenders of some strange results, strange performances on online. They are really like an argument. So this is like one which they like to give, but okay, this is nonsense. It cannot be too different, and it's not. You will see the numbers, but still, if it's not, in any case, what my point is that you must do, if you're already researching seriously, this meta, they should have been doing it with both ratings. So one research with FIDE rating, another research with Chesscom rating, because it's kind of logical. You are researching online games, so why not to use, or at least to try to use a Chesscom rating? There are many things like this which are missing in this report, and since it doesn't make any sense, so why not to do it also with their own ratings? My clear feeling, and you will see a lot of it later on in this video, that actually they maybe did it, but the results were not satisfactory. I would say not satisfactory to show it to public, and that's why they are not talking. I mean, it doesn't make about it, doesn't make much sense to use to check it only with FIDE ratings, which, well, and explaining that there are differences. So again, I hope you got my point. It's just logical fallacy. I mean, okay, at least also present with the same examination with Chesscom ratings. So they are telling, first, let's acknowledge that there are important differences between over-the-board and online play, including prevalence of pre-moves. Okay, yeah, there is some difference, yeah, for everyone. By the all these differences is the same for everyone, yeah. So not quite clear why it should at least considerably in a big sample of games should change the result, yeah, the performances. Importance of mouse speed. Okay, 3+1 really, you know, I'm one of the very few, you know, playing on Chesscom who is really not so good with it, but actually because I don't care. I just play for fun. If I would care, in 1 week I would be almost on the same level as others. It's not difficult, and I can tell you, like, you know, 98 out of 100 players are more or less the same, are perfectly fine with a mouse. So this is really, I mean, it can make a difference in 3-0 games, but since they're investigating 3-1, it almost has no difference. Again, if you are considering so many games. Impact of internet connection. Yeah, that makes some difference. Yeah, some differences between 2D visualization, 3D visualization. Okay, it's the same for everyone. So why one group of players should be better than other group of players of this is not clear. So since again, the bigger is a sample in statistical research, and here they claim that it's 160,000 games. I mean, less and less the differences are. So this, anything which goes like where no side has an advantage, it would really minimize the effect to like 0.1%. So this cannot explain a real difference. Sorry, but not on this sample of games. Longer time controls in OTB Blitz compared to 3+1 in Title Tuesday. Well, it's 3+2. Actually, it's very similar, very similar. So yes, there can be again some differences, but shouldn't be huge anyways. And higher levels of pressure and focus placed on ATB play as compared to online play. Again, you cannot measure it. Yeah, again, all those things they can make. It's actually here they're partly right, because it makes. Well, they say there are important differences. I mean, there are differences which can make a certain couple of percent maybe difference, but not really. There is no proof that it will make it any more than this minor, you know, percentage difference. So okay, let us acknowledge, yes. So for this reason, they say we don't expect that everyone's FIDE Blitz strengths should perfectly match the strengths of chess.com. Well, that's logical, of course. That perfectly not, but very close for sure. It must be. There is absolutely no reason to think that somebody can be like 200, let's say, points higher. I mean, if you are using the same FIDE rating, online than offline, there is no sense. There is absolutely no reason, factual, mathematical, or common sense reason to think like that. It's pretty clear. Since everyone, we hope, can agree that OTB Blitz games and FIDE Blitz rating are basically 100% clean, yeah, I agree. We thought it would make sense to use them as our baseline. Exactly, I offered this to chess.com already 1 year ago. Exactly, I think almost a year ago. I mean, didn't get any response. Finally, they are doing what I already did myself, by the way. And of course, it is one of the very important, measures, anti-cheating measures, is to create a certain benchmark of OTB games I was doing with World Championships. It's about like 15, even more thousand games, because I was taking some tournaments earlier than 2015. And that is because I believe we all understand that it's like 99.9% all of those games are clean. And then you create a benchmark, yeah. And then, since the difference cannot be dramatic between OTB and online Blitz 3+2, 3+1, then it's actually a very, very serious benchmark. So if somebody is all of a sudden in a long period of time is playing better than all best players in the world showed within this many years and 15,000 games, something is very fishy, most probably. Yeah, so that's logical. But then the way they did it is really strange. So first of all, also one very important point, because then you will see at the end of the report they're trying to explain that they finally making a very strange, I would say, settings of parameters. They got to more or less similar numbers. I will tell you why it's not correct, but actually at the beginning, if they pretend that there is important differences and between OTB and online play, so why then they expect to have the same numbers? Because finally they're very happy to have same numbers and explain that it means there is no major cheating. I will get you, I will explain you my idea why it just doesn't make sense, but in any case there shouldn't be exactly same numbers, logically. Okay, that's just another simply logical mistake they're making. Then next, yes, so this is what I mean, the logical fallacy, expecting the same results and performances if there are differences on those two. Actually, so then the fourth huge blunder, then we start to get to the point of two numbers, and here is one, such a clear, obvious mistake that I just cannot believe it was done, just by incompetence. It is so incompetent to do this, because when they start to check different groups of players, they're using score instead of performance. So what I mean, I will tell you. So now let's go to the graphics. So average score, well, they explain basic things, that win is a win, draw is a half point, 1 point. Okay, this I hope you all know already. Then they start to get to results. They tell results. Let's start by comparing the average scores of underdogs in Title Tuesday games and over-the-board blitz games, where an underdog is any player who had a lower FIDE blitz rating than their opponent. This I understand, but the question is how much lower? That is the main point, So results of those, so what they say here, underdog average scores, Title Tuesday with OTB Blitz, both using FIDE Blitz rating. I forgot to mention, extremely important, a huge blunder in any statistical report. So you must make, as I mentioned already, the two groups which you are directly comparing with each other as similar, preferably identical by parameters, as possible. And finally, any statistician, even the beginner, would tell you that, comparing 167,000 and half, more or less, thousand games with 36,500 games, it's a big mistake, huge mistake. You have to compare. It's possible to do it, but ideally you must try to get identical or very similar parameters. So what they should have done, and it's very basic, is to choose randomly the same number of games, exactly the same, or let's say randomly 20,000 each, for example, and then to randomly complete, and then to check exactly the same amount of games, preferably the most also important. So from this 167,000, you can easily make one or even two probably sets of games of 36,502 with very similar parameters, like same average rating, same difference against of players who are lower rated and higher rated. So everything the same, and this is the correct way to make a research. Then you start to compare. So you have identical database, And here you can make it. 36,000 is not so little. It's actually quite a lot of games. So what they should have done is having, probably they could easily get two sets of games where it would be as close as possible, if not similar average rating. And then you can really make a certain conclusion out of it. When you compare 167,000 games with 36, I mean, you actually can do it. It's possible, but the very complicated formulas, you need to be sure that it's coherent. They don't say anywhere in this report if they did this checking, if it's actually can be compared. This is first, and then the totally different average rating of players. So actually, it's practically, at least they never write what was the average ratings in each of the tests they made. So I can tell you that all these graphics without that information. First of all, huge mistake that they didn't do it same amount of games, and second, if they don't publish in each of these graphics the average rating, it tells you nothing, just nothing. It simply doesn't make sense. Or performance, at least you have to calculate performance, which means basically you are considering the average rating. Because I will try to explain you why. So they are saying, okay, underdog average scores, Title Tuesday with OTB Blitz, both using FIDE Blitz rating. Okay, and they say, okay, so finally scored, so amount of points, simply. OTB is 37%, Title Tuesday 32%. But it depends what is the average rating. I mean, I will tell you, for instance, and they're very happy everywhere trying to explain that it's pretty similar. Actually, here they actually tell right after, at some point. So they say, we see that underdogs in Title Tuesday perform worse, average score of 32%. It means nothing. You know, one thing, let's say, if I'm playing Magnus Carlsen or I don't know, some FIDE Master 2400 playing. Of course, I mean, I will score more, still not so much for it, but much more. So who cares? Amount of points doesn't make any difference. It's very important average rating. I mean, what type of players are playing? Yes, so that in itself, it just has no meaning, these numbers. I mean, and they're not saying what was the average rating. They should have, if they already use score, then they should have written here what was the average rating in each group. I mean, an average rating of the opponents as well. And then, then it would be more or less legit, at least. Like this, just simply you can forget about it, doesn't matter. So they are saying that it's we see that underdogs in Title 2 perform worse, again, than underdogs in OTB. 32% against 37%. It makes sense that both groups of underdogs would have average scores below 50%. Yeah, of course it makes sense, because they're always playing with a stronger opposition, even though I will show you some example that in a long streak of games it's not the case with some players. But it might be surprising for some, they write. In the aggregate, underdogs perform better in OTB Blitz games than in Title Tuesday games. So they're asking why, and then finally they tell later on, again, it's very badly organized. Yeah, they ask the question, then they say that we digged further, and finally they're saying that, so somewhere here, that they say that actually the reason why, this is very important. Now we see a problem with the comparison we are making earlier. Title Tuesday matchups tend to be more lopsided average rating difference of 225 points than OTB Blitz matchups, average rating difference 153 points. So what they say that actually, the average, again, instead of giving, very precise in each of the test average rating difference, they are telling only all together, but we can start if they forgot to mention it in each particular test they are making. Well, we can more or less, I can just explain you it's absolutely huge difference. 153 and 225, I think the difference is what, 72, yeah, 72 points difference between Title Tuesday and OTB Blitz. And here we come to a very important so here they are saying that okay, the average rating difference, yeah, it's considered 72 points in such a big, again, sample of games. It's actually a very conceptual difference. Yeah, so here I will tell you how much it's. I just wrote here the numbers. How much different it makes in performance. So let's say we are taking 2,700 player playing with 2,500 players. So let's say 200 elo points difference. Expected score is 76%. Of course 2,700 players, so more or less 7.5 out of 10. And now let's take the difference. Let's add this 72 points, which is the difference between OTB and Title Tuesday in this, the average general difference. Yeah. So it means 2,700 player, let's say, playing with 2,572. Yeah, obviously. Then the expected score is already 67%, so 9% difference. So, do you understand then? I mean, that it shouldn't be the same. I mean, because again, it should be actually in, well, let's say, because we don't know in each particular test what was the difference. They don't tell it. It's very important information, but they don't tell it. So let's assume, I don't know, the difference was 50 points. So the difference in each of these tests, so it should always be around 5% in favor of OTB, because OTB has a higher average of players. So basically all those tests which they made, so they're explaining here, and all those tests, you see they are telling now, for example, this is quite important graphic. So they are telling underdog average scores by rating difference bucket. Title Tuesday, OTB online. Again, 144,000 Title Tuesday games, already less. 35,000 also less. We don't know what games, we don't know title players or not in OTB, but okay. And then they're saying, okay, the difference, yeah? The difference between, when the difference is between 400 and 351 points. Well, but it's a considerable difference. So 400, 399 or 351. This makes performance completely different, because again, we are talking about big numbers. So 50, as I mentioned already, difference of 5 is more or less, of 50 rating points is more or less 5%. So of course, we don't know, again, how many were exactly in this group. We also don't know, by the way, also very big failures. They don't tell how many games they consider. Because, in each of these tests, in each of this group, how many games? Because it's obviously here there are much less games, OTB. Are they considering the same amount of games? That would be actually, that would be correct, in fact. If it's different amount of games, did they make actually quite complicated mathematical formula to make it coherent, to make it actually capable to even compare it? They don't say anything about it, but in any case, it's supposedly, they, again, as I mentioned, they must write everywhere the average rating in OTB and Title Tuesday. And it's quite obvious that they have to do it. And why they didn't do it, my guess, I'm pretty sure about it, that since there is such a big difference, so in average rating, it always will be, actually the difference. So let's say Title Tuesday would be more on the side of 400, or on one side, or here 350, and OTB Blitz difference between players would more be on the other side of 350. And then it means that actually the performance, they have to score maybe 3-4% always higher OTB than if this is the case. And I'm pretty sure it just mathematically, if the difference is 72 altogether, 72 points, so it probably should be distributed more or less equally. So we can assume always, yeah, some 30-40 sometimes sometimes maybe even 80 points difference, and that makes, I mean, I would say, so let's say 72 is in general 9%. I mean, it must be always considerably higher OTB performance than titled Tuesday performance. We can only guess. I mean, otherwise you can, if they would just publish the average rating, you can calculate it very precisely, and that is probably why they didn't publish it. Because you could very precisely calculate what should be these numbers and what are they, what are those numbers, yeah. But here, for example, 24 against 22, as I understand, if the difference is distributed normally, yeah, so it should have been maybe like 24 against 28 or something, yeah. And every single one, so it should not be equal. It's pretty obvious, yeah, because the difference is always higher in OTB, so I mean lower, so there is less difference, so it means so it means the score should be higher, yeah, because the percentage should be higher. So I mean, that is why, I mean, and at the end of the day they are so happy everywhere, they're making these tests and they're extremely happy finally getting to the numbers which are more or less the same. Like here you see, it means, so for example they say here, it's actually funny, it's so ridiculous in a way, because they actually don't understand themselves that by showing it, they actually, I mean, there is a very, very serious indication of very significant cheating, because they have to be every single parameter, OTB has to be few percent higher, and we see sometimes it's the case, very little, like 2%, but most of the time it's pretty equal, and it shouldn't be simply. So I hope you understood my point. So okay, you can read the then other things, it's less important, but then they are telling, okay, now they're making a different test. Yeah, that is actually the most, I'm sorry, the most of a joke. Yeah, this is what so now they're making a test according to groups. So you see there are groups less below 2000, I mean OTB, and here is over the board, and here is title Tuesday. Again, they don't say amount of games, so maybe here, let's say in this in this set of games maybe 10,000, and here maybe 50. I mean, we don't know, simply we just don't know, they don't mention it, so which you cannot really compare. But in any case, so now all of a sudden they change parameters. Why do they do it? I guess because the old ones were not giving correct results, because what now they take groups of players, so they combine, let's say, the groups of players of a certain rating, they put it in one group, and instead of making as here, they made a 50 elo points difference only, yeah, so all the time difference 50, which is kind of okay. Yeah, actually I think 50 is, you can say that those are players of comparable level, comparable level, let's say, or let's say two players playing, I mean 50 is a kind of gradation. You can say that if somebody is better than, I mean higher than other one, less than 50 elo points in Blitz, okay, you can say they're more or less comparable, equal, or close to equal. But here suddenly they, for no reason, they change the parameter kind of, and they start to make 150, they start to put players in one group of 150 elo points difference. But 150 points, elo points, it's actually, it's a huge difference, you know, it's conceptual difference. It's actually a difference of a very strong grandmaster and I would say a good international master or something, you know, so you cannot put them in one group. And then playing against also opponents of same. They kind of made certain groups also 150 different. So finally, the funny thing that, let's say you see here the players of the group 2300-2449 playing against the player of the group, let's say 2600-2749. So here in this parameter, so in this set of games, in this particular group, you can have a game of 2449 playing against 2601, and also it will be considered in one group a game of 2300 playing against 2749. I mean, the range of expected score I calculated is from 15%, so let's say 1.5 out of 10 in the second variation, and around 50%, yeah, because I mean, let's say no, I'm talking about this 2450. Yeah, I was taking 2450, 2599, and 262749. So if you are on the one side of this group, so 2599 can play against 2600, so it should be equal simply. Or you can have a game of 2450 against 2749. I mean, it's like it's 1.5 out of 10 or 5 out of 10. So how can you calculate them in one group? And you say this kind of average, let's say here is 35% and here 39%, but maybe here the difference between rating difference is, let's say 100 points, and here maybe 200 points, which should make it like, I don't know, almost double the percentage, because it's a very big difference. So what I mean that, again, they are not showing the most important, the average ratings in this group and in this group. So we cannot calculate the performance. And these numbers, all those numbers without this average rating, it just do not make any sense. It's just numbers. I mean, because, so again, they should calculate in performance. So actually they're using a lot of rating parameters, sharing into groups, rating, etc. But finally, when it's important, they're actually forgetting about rating. Yeah, because here they just the score. I mean, the score of whom? Who played whom? I mean, 2449 against 2599 against 2600 average in here, let's say OTB, or maybe 2490 against, let's say, 2700. It's a huge difference. I mean, without it, it makes no sense. I don't know. I mean, why? Of course, if they would keep like only 50 elo points groups, I mean, there was nothing actually which would prevent them to make it a longer graph, yeah, and then to make a bigger one and to separate groups into 50 elo points only, here and there as well. It would be a bigger picture, but then you can be much more accurate, much more precise, assessing, comparing. Because otherwise it's like, okay, this you can forget, this you can also forget, you can just forget, doesn't make sense, I'm sorry. But without that most important information, it just makes no sense. I mean, I hope you understand. I understand it's a bit difficult, but still. So what I say here, that huge blunder, that score against performance, and as a consequence, at least if you already take score, but you cannot do it without mentioning average ratings in each group and amount of games. Yeah, I mean, how many games do you also consider here? Is it equal amount of games? I don't think so. For example, there was some, I think there was somewhere, yes, such a low percentage, like 3%. It probably means that there are very few games. I mean, yeah, I don't know. We simply don't know how many games. I mean, in each particular, let's say, quadrat here was played. I guess always much more title Tuesday, and maybe in some, for example, in OTB, there are very few actually. Because of the nature of tournaments organized over the board, the very few times, in fact, a player, let's say of 2000, is playing against I don't know, or let's say 2100, 2000, playing against 2600. I guess there are not too many games actually. Maybe, I don't know, 50 maybe maximum. And here in Title Tuesday it's happening all the time. So it's very possible that they say here you see it's equal. First of all, as I mentioned, it shouldn't be equal because the difference probably is very rating difference is much higher in Title Tuesday than OTB, so which should normally lead to the fact that the number here should be higher. I mean, the percentage of points in OTB. And secondly, we don't know how many games. Maybe here is 1000 games and here is 30 games. I mean, you cannot even compare it, yeah? So, I mean, those are such a basic fallacies they made, yeah? That, I mean, it's very dubious, very suspicious, the whole story. And now they say, yeah, here that, again, they make a map, they say that, well, it's very logical that the score is the same. So they are meaning here that 17% is the same score, so there is little cheating. But I mean, again, as I mentioned already, maybe the difference between players here and here, most probably, even not only maybe, but most probably, mathematically, was very big. I mean, was a very serious difference. And then it's actually what is really suspicious that it's equal. It shouldn't be equal, and these numbers should not be equal in this case. So okay, that is and now then they make a recap and then they make a conclusion. That is yeah, again, I mentioned here that having comparing OTB and online statistics, having completely different size of samples, 36,000 and 144,000 games, or even more, 160, is ridiculous. I mean, you shouldn't do it. You really shouldn't do it. And then we come to the final conclusion, which would actually be funny in a way, because I mean, I will explain you logically why they're making completely wrong conclusion. First of all, as I already mentioned, that because of the rating difference of two OTB and Title Tuesday group, if they already want to make any conclusion out of this test, and I will contest it, I will tell you, I think there is no legit way to make any conclusion, but that will come later. But if already making a conclusion, as they like to do, then I would say that considering the rating difference which of two groups, the fact that the numbers are more or less the same, because I will tell you the conclusion here. Okay, they're making another graphics, you can check it, but they're making then the test comparing 3-0 online with Title Tuesday. I mean, who cares? Again, it's very equal numbers. I guess it shouldn't be equal again. So, I mean, in fact, it's actually telling that it's very dubious. So why 3-0 and 3-1 should be equal? I mean, because in 3-0, of course, the mouse skills becomes very important. 3-1, it's not so important, but the numbers are still the same, which also is a bit weird. But so finally, take away, and then what is the conclusion? Yes, that because the numbers are very similar. Yeah, here. So our report identifies some small differences between underdog average score in Title Tuesday games and over-the-board blitz games. We believe these disparities reflect a combination of skill difference online, blah blah blah, whatever, cheating as well. But finally, so why I'm recording this video? Because here they say, we invite you into the conversation with us. Yeah. We invite to conversation with us and appreciate you sharing anything you found compelling as well as unconvincing from the analysis here. I'm giving you a favor, Chesscom. I'm recording this video. I'm sure you're going to watch it, and I'm telling you why it is incompetent and weak. So it's what you asked. So finally, what they say is that it seems to them because of the research compared Title Tuesday outcomes to OTB Blitz outcomes. Again, performances should have been compared, and found that the two tend to mirror each other. This shouldn't be the case because of the rating difference. Very clear. Whether we use FIDE Blitz rating, which we think are better for predicting the outcomes of FIDE classical ratings. Why should you take FIDE classical rating? Just makes no sense. Why wouldn't you take your Chesscom rating? I mean, I tell you why. Because the results will be very unpleasant. So that's why you are not taking. The only reason, because it makes no sense not to at least try to make the same test with Chesscom ratings. I mean, maybe you made it, but you didn't want to publish it for some reason. But well, that is very cheap, I mean, of course, it should have been at least made with Chesscom ratings. Okay, our analysis in this report leads us to believe, you can believe whatever you want, but has no meaning, that large-scale cheating is not happening in Title Tuesday. Okay, first of all, it's actually the numbers showing that it is happening, as I explained you. Secondly, why you cannot make actually this conclusion at all? Because if the numbers, even if they are pretty equal, I mean identical, very similar, but logically it doesn't mean at all that there is no cheating. Because let's say whatever amount of cheating can be in Title Tuesday, 10%, 30%, whatever, doesn't matter. I mean, if it's more or less equally distributed, so it would still give the same number. I mean, finally the numbers of upsets, as they say, will be the same because it's just distributed equally. So finally it can change a bit, but it's absolutely possible that because we have no idea what is the distribution of this cheating, how many in each group of players. Also, once you cheat, you immediately race on the top. So then kind of, yes, you are having more games, you are yourself having much better performances against higher rated players. But first of all, very quickly you get less and less higher rated players. Secondly, from other point of view, nobody can beat you. Lower rated players are always losing against you. So from this side, the percentage is decreasing. From this side, increasing. How much it increase, you cannot calculate it out. So there is absolutely, so what I mean finally, that there is no way to conclude anything global from this test. I mean, from the global point of view, there is nothing which can make you think there is less, 10% of cheating or 30% using this test. Or I don't know, or no cheating at all. It simply has no logic. There is no correlation because it's perfectly possible that there is 50% of cheating, let's say, and these numbers would still be as they are. I mean, I hope I explained it clearly. So at the end of the day, it just doesn't make sense. I'm sorry. It makes sense only in one way, but I will probably, since this video is already pretty long, I will probably try to record it later, the video exactly explaining why actually, if done correctly, this test can be a very, very useful tool to to find concretely some players who are very, let's say, probably would be cheating, but only in this sense. Otherwise, if the goal was to understand what is the amount of, what is the percentage of cheating, if there is a massive cheating, not massive cheating in Title Tuesday, a priori it was impossible, and whatever numbers would be, I mean, practically, especially if they're not, like, of course, huge difference, 90 and 10%, but if they're more or less coherent, you cannot tell anything out of it. So that is the last kind of, the last drop, which makes it all, I'm sorry, just laughable, this whole report, objectively. And at the end of this, okay, I would like just to mention that, well, it's been the second report in half a year. Of course, the first one on Nakamura's streak or streaks, I explained already many times. You can see my previous videos, how weak and well, it was simply a joke. Yeah, I mean, really a joke. This one is seemingly, it looks more like some kind of a scientific research, but in reality, I mean, there are so many mistakes that I personally, okay, you can have your own opinion. I personally find it hard to believe it was, it was done just because they really don't understand much about. I think they have understanding of what should be done, and because certain numbers, certain parameters were changed, certain numbers were hidden here, and very important statistics and numbers. It makes me think that, okay, this was done, this was done on purpose for some reason. So that would raise a question: why would they do it? But all in all, I mean, this is all not serious. I mean, I'm sorry, even I'm basically alone with a group of people who are helping me, a small group. We are not spending millions on anti-cheating as Chesscom is pretending. We are not on salary, several people. There's a whole anti-cheating committee. But, I will just give you a very short, I will introduce it later one day maybe. Maybe not, because maybe players shouldn't know much about it. But I will tell you how a serious one actually should more or less look like, and it's only part of the full anti-cheating, let's say, measures which are taken. And I will just show you briefly. We are developing it. It's getting better and better. More and more games analyzed by engines, and so it's improving, but it's already, so this is what's serious. And again, when some people are accusing me that, okay, I just tell something, like emotional, I mean, I'm sorry, I have so much data, very precise data on each player, believe me, on each player, on each move of each player, each parameter of each player, that I know what I'm talking about, and I will never present this thing, actually, if I present something very quickly, it would be more of this sort. Hope you can see. I mean, I will not show you too much, but this is all players, OTB, online, all games. I mean, they are on the process of getting more and more analyzed. It will become like, all parameters. Okay, let's see, for example, this is a middle game, let's say ranking. Now let's see who is blundering list of all, for example. Okay, who is blundering list of all? It takes a bit of time, but it will show you now. And of course, it will still keep on changing a bit with more and more games. So all parameters, every move, every average, accuracy in this parameter, in that parameter. Then you can go to a concrete player and check all the games one by one with engine. Then here, I'm not showing you, but here there are many different parameters which you can. So, for instance, okay, amount of blunders. For some reason, the best player is Dmitry Goltsev, FIDE rating 2370. Yeah, actually 100 games checked, not so little, 100 games entitled Tuesdays. Yeah, second is Vashela Graf, third is Paravian, fourth is Hikaru, fifth is Cristobal Enriquez Villagra. Okay, different amount of games, but then it's all calculated in different ways, etc., etc. I mean, then you can go to link to to the games of a player. Okay, all games, every single game, all calculations of all single games. So, and then you have different performances. Here we are going to add even more. Okay, this is what it has to be. I mean, and I'm not sure they have it, but just trust me that when I'm making my reports, when I'm telling about suspicions or something, I mean, I have all the data, absolutely all the data on each player, on each game played. And I can tell you a lot of very, very interesting leaders on the leaderboards. So all of a sudden, in some, just will show you, okay, the last thing, I think Magnus was in like around number 30 in a very important parameter. I think like overall performance, or one of the parameters, he was like, very often like top players, in the like 30 or 40, and some FMs and IMs are much higher. So whatever, okay, I will overall performance, let's say amount of blunders, or okay, there is mistakes with little time. Okay, let's see who is playing best with having very little time on the clock. Just so when it will be fully ready with all parameters, okay, this is actually Anton Korobov, but only 15 moves, very few games. He plays very rarely. Otherwise, with decent amount of games, the best player is Ivan Zemlyansky. He's making least mistakes of all. And Kaidentrov. I don't know who are they. Then Dmitry Glushko is next. And then somewhere there, where Levon Aranyan starts to get number 19. So yeah, etc. Okay, just to show you a small example on why I'm telling you how the situation is dramatic, completely dramatic in Title Tuesdays, and the cheating is widespread, and whatever they publish, this sort of report, when the only goal of the report is to convince naive public that everything is great, I have a little bit more numbers and statistics, and I explain you here what was wrong with this report. And okay, and the final note, general note, I would ask Chesscom, well, stop all this. It doesn't make sense. It's not going, you're not going to hide for too long. It's obvious. The very, very significant amount of cheating on Title Tuesday becomes obvious even to people who doesn't have the data which I have. Yeah, it becomes too obvious by results, by performances, and this kind of reports, I'm going to refute every single new one where you will try to convince your public that everything is good. I will explain why it's all not correct. So it's really high time to make coming out, and then to start really from scratch, to maybe to ban a very significant amount of players, and to start a new life. Of course, I know you're not going to do it, Chesscom, and I know you will keep on doing these reports, but it's going to explode one day. It's already getting close, and you'll remember my words in some time. Chesscom will probably come out, maybe in 1 year, half year, whatever, 2 years, come out explaining, that okay, now we understood finally, how, okay, this is all, the problem is that it's going to happen anyway. And, more you wait with this, more you wait before you cannot anymore convince people what is actually too obvious, convince people in something opposite. More you wait with it, more chances it will hit you stronger, even stronger, to the extent that the whole business, the whole Chesscom will be in danger. So I don't wish bad to Chesscom, but I just see how much of cheating is happening. I understand that it's extremely damageable for chess in general, for online chess and offline chess. And so my advice would be stop all this thing. I mean, for once, make a real report. I mean, open up some numbers and just admit that this is a situation and start to do something about it. Before it's too late. Before it's too late. That's why I'm doing so much work on it, because I know what is a real situation. I know that you know it, and that's why well, I'm just trying to raise public awareness and trying to make public understand that the only way that it will be changed is if a lot of users Chesscom, they will start to not to ask, not to complain, to demand Chesscom doing it, and then they will have no choice, because the numbers are very obvious and I know it very well, as you could see, you know, with the program which I have, for instance. I mean, it's everything is very clear. Thank you.